stage forthwith. I declare the House in committee for consideration of the Student Loan Scheme Bill. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker. Honourable members, the House is in committee on the Student Loan Scheme Bill. The first question is that Part 1 stand part. Now, debate on these clauses are from 3 through to 24 and includes Schedule 1. I invite some Honourable member to seek the call. I call the Honourable member Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to a fulsome debate on the Student Loan Scheme Bill, a bill that Labor is supporting but with reservations. This part of the bill deals with the purpose of the bill, of course, and I could probably begin my comments there. I primarily want to, in this contribution, talk about the move to an electronic system for administering student loans, but perhaps if we talk in more general terms about the purpose of what this Act, or this, as it will become, is designed to do, provide for the effective administration of student loans, provide for the collection of student loan repayments, provide for transparency about student loans so that borrowers understand their obligations for those loans, and encourage borrowers to repay their student loans at the earliest possible time. Now, those are all good things, and those are all things that the Labor Party supports and agrees with. It would be fair to say that the student loan scheme at the moment is radically different to the student loan scheme that was first introduced in the early 1990s, and is one that has been in need of refinement for some time. As a student loan borrower, I've spoken in previous debates on the loan scheme about the difficulties that I personally have had in making sure that my loan was repaid and actually that I ended up with a zero balance. And one of the difficulties for that is actually getting accurate information about a student loan balance at any given time. It can be incredibly difficult. It's probably the most difficult for students who are still studying, because in the first year that their loan is drawn down, it is administered by Work and Income, or StudyLink, and then in the subsequent years by the IRD. So at the end of the year, their loan balance is transferred from StudyLink to the IRD, which means if they're in the second, third or fourth year of study, they actually have effectively two loans, one with the IRD and one with StudyLink, and actually trying to work out, get accurate information about what their loan balance at any given time is, has always been a challenge for people. What this bill does, and I think it's something that we're definitely in support of, is it allows for real-time transfer of information between those two, if you like, administrators of the student loan scheme, so that at any one point in time a student will be able to log in, or a borrower, for those who aren't currently students, will be able to log in and get accurate, up-to-date information about what their loan balance is. And I think that's important, it's useful. It's what we can do with all of our banking now. We can log in, we can check our bank balances, check our credit card statements without any difficulty. Why we can't do the same with student loans has, I guess, been a point of contention, and I think it's something that all student loan borrowers will definitely welcome. However, there are still some pitfalls that need to be worked through. For example, and it comes to do with the calculation of interest payments and interest write-offs, because the difficulty that I constantly get from people is where mistakes are made in interest calculations, either on their part or on the part of the IRD, in getting accurate information about exactly how much they need to repay. And it generally tends to happen when someone gets towards the end of the repayments of their student loan. So they might get to the point where they've only got a few $100s left, so they'll cancel their salary deductions from their salaries, because they know that their salary deductions are going to potentially be more than the amount left that they have to pay. So they'll go ahead and do that. The IRD they'll then try and get from the IRD an accurate estimate of how much, or an accurate account of how much it is they have to pay, and they'll make that payment. However, it can then turn out that they've underpaid or overpaid depending on the interest calculations that are then made, and so they could end up getting a refund, or they could end up getting another bill for more. So I hope that what we can get to in time is a system where at a point in time somebody can actually get an accurate, if I want to finish my loan and get a zero balance as of today, this is the amount that I have to pay, or this is the amount that I'm being refunded, and that we don't actually have this process where you then, once you think you've made your final payment, have to wait for a long period of time before you actually get to find out whether or not in fact your final payment has been made. And I'm pleased to see the National Party agree on that, because that has been a nightmare for people. And the other thing that's I guess been a nightmare is that the IRD's administration of the scheme using the paper-based system that they have at the moment has a few quirks in it. So I finally did get to that point with my loan after a year. It took a whole year to get from being near the final repayment to actually getting the zero loan balance, with a bit of backwards and forwards from the Inland Revenue. And then for about 3 years after that, every year they sent me a statement saying that I had a zero balance on my student loan because their paper-based system didn't quite keep up with the fact that I'd actually managed to pay it off. And that's something that I get from them all of the time. I'm surprised they didn't add the cost of the postage to my loan balance, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then send me a bill for it, because actually, ultimately, the taxpayer was paying for these loan statements to continue to be sent out to me long after my loan had been repaid. And I hope that in the move to this new electronic system that we're putting in place with this bill, all of that can be avoided, and the system, in fact, will be a lot more efficient. Once someone's repaid their loan, it will be finished. And I think that's something that we on this side of the House will be very supportive of. My colleagues in the second reading speeches have raised concerns about the fee for establishment of a student loan being increased from $50 to $60, and that's one that I certainly concur with, because one could ask, if the student loan scheme is in fact going to be more efficiently administered, why is it that we have to increase the amount of money that a borrower is going to have to pay in order to have a loan in the first place, if it's going to be more efficiently administered? Is this a backdoor way of increasing the cost to the borrower when actually the cost to the borrower should be decreasing? My argument is if this bill actually does result in a more efficient administration of the loan scheme, the savings from that should be passed on to the borrower. And to do anything less than that, in my view, would effectively resemble a broken promise by the National Party, because the National Party promised that they would keep interest-free student loans, and of course they actually did make some other promises around making it easier for people to repay their loans faster. And if what they're doing is increasing the efficiency of the scheme and then not passing on the benefits of that to borrowers, I think that really is a breach of the good faith that many loan borrowers showed towards the National Party by mistakenly voting for them. We can forgive them for that. But I think, in time, I'd like to see those savings passed on. We've already seen from this national government the introduction of an annual fee for student loan borrowers. That is, in my view, a form of interest. An annual fee, because even if somebody does nothing other than make the repayments that they're required to make and just keep it ticking over, they're still going to be charged an annual fee, or they still are now charged an annual fee, which in my view is a form of interest. So the Labour Party is definitely opposed to the introduction of this to the increase of the establishment fee, and we were opposed to the introduction of the annual fee. So I'll deal more with the repayment provisions in the next part, and my contribution on the next part of the bill. But I want to sort of return maybe to the purpose of the bill, which is around the efficient administration of the student loan scheme and greater transparency around student loans. I think that's certainly something that we on this side of the House will welcome. As I've said before, it has been a bit of a black box of trying to figure out by loan borrowers exactly how much it is that they owe, trying to get to the bottom of how much they would need to pay if they want to repay their loan in full. And I think that this potentially does help that situation quite considerably, and it's one that we certainly welcome. I could talk now a little bit about some of the definitions set out in Clause 4. The annual repayment threshold is established there as being $19,084. That's actually not an awful lot of money for somebody to, before the compulsory repayments kick in. And we've seen under this government that figure hasn't been adjusted in the sense that we might have hoped, and that probably would have been under a Labour government. So people on very low incomes of only $19,000 are having to make repayments on their student loans, and I think maybe that's something that we want to consider in this current economic climate. I think everybody who borrows knows that they need to make their repayments. Well, actually, I say to Amy Adams, we're all earning $130,000+ a year. It might not seem like a lot of money to us in this house, but for people earning $19,000 a year, making repayments on a student loan on top of the tax that they have to pay, is a considerable amount of money. Okay, clause 4.1a is the annual repayment threshold for the member who doesn't seem to be aware of what's in the bill that we're actually debating, for what's in the year that we're actually in the bill that we're actually debating. And so, I don't know what's changed. It's in the bill, therefore it can be debated. It's in the bill, therefore it can be debated. And the excitable Ms Adams, I'm sure, will take the next call. To talk about that. Actually, what's changed? Well, the threshold hasn't changed, and that's the problem. The threshold hasn't changed, and that's the problem, because it should have, and it would have if Labour had been in government.
Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to talk about two specific elements.